A very good morning, Salam alaikum to all of our guests this morning from South Africa, and good afternoon and welcome to our guests from up in the Northern Hemisphere. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome you to our webinar on unlocking halal business opportunities for South African companies. My name is Thiru Naidu and I am the trade manager for the Middle East at Westgrow. Westgrow is the provincial trade, tourism and investment promotion agency for the Western Cape in South Africa. Today's webinar is brought to you in partnership with the Dubai Free Zone Authority and the Dubai Trade and Halal Marketing Center, which is a division of DAFZA. Joining us on the call this morning is Mr. Abdul Rahim, Senior Advisor.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm lost here. The voice there. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, hello. Rahim, please go ahead because I think Hiro is facing some issues.
Okay, so
okay, thank you. Sorry, I seem to have lost everybody there. I'm not sure at which part I lost everybody. I was about to introduce Mr. Abdul Rahim. Mr. Abdul, maybe you can assist me. Did our panelists hear my welcome, and did they hear the introductory to some of our speakers? Okay, fantastic. Okay, so to get us started, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Abdul Rahim, who will provide us with a few opening notes. Thank you. Mr. Rahim, to you.
Good morning, everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Abdul Rahim, and I'm there as a senior advisor to the Deputy CEO of the Dubai Airport Free Zone Authority. First of all, I would like to express, my sincere thanks to His Excellency, Mr. Mugobo David Mugabe, the Consul General based out of the Consulate Republic of South Africa and the UAE, and to Mr. Tim Harris, the CEO of Westgrow, for accepting the invitation to be a part of this very relevant and enriching panel discussion. I think, as well as, it's an honor to be with so many extraordinary representation of some of the key companies and institutions from both the countries. And I would like to thank all the speakers as well as the participants for accepting again to join this webinar. Before giving the floor back to Ms. Thiru Naidu, please allow me to give you a brief introduction about the Dubai Airport Free Zone Authority, some of our initiatives related to the Islamic economy in particular, so that you can better understand how we are contributing to the activation of this fast-growing business market. Well, DAFZA, Dubai Airport Free Zone Authority, was established in the year 1996 as a part of Dubai government strategy to become an investment-driven economy. Basically, we are a special economic zone attracting foreign direct investment and companies from all over the world, contributing to growing the GDP of Dubai. Focus on the Islamic economy and halal trade in particular is one of our key global differentiators for DAFZA. I will just briefly talk about the two major initiatives under this domain. One was the launch of the Halal Guide book. It's a step-by-step guide that actually helps companies in Dubai or evaluating to come to Dubai to give them a 360 understanding of the halal market, the stakeholders, the global opportunity, the regulations, and the other opportunities available for them. And the second initiative, the key one, which was done alongside the Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center, was the launch of the Halal Trade and Marketing Center. The HTMC, or the Halal Trade and Marketing Center, is a global business development center, which is primarily there and focused on the halal opportunities for manufacturers, suppliers, wholesalers, and retailers of halal economy products and services all over the world. So that's a brief as to why we are here and why we are sort of a part of this event. A little bit about UAE and South Africa. During the last few years, it's quite clear that the ties between the UAE and South Africa are growing significantly. And the bilateral trade relations between the two countries amounted to $3.8 billion in 2019. bringing, adding to this the value of halal certified food and beverage products as being one of the major South African exports to the UAE. South Africa is an emerging world power, providing and selling raw materials, as we are all well aware, which could use the halal market as a lever for helping its companies to internationalize and diversify their exports beyond, I would say, Europe, the Americas, and East Asia. The UAE, on the other hand, plays a vital role as a global trading hub, as you are well aware, and it could work as a platform, I would say, for supporting South African companies to grow in the halal space. The UAE, in principle, has the state-of-the-art logistics facilities and a world-class business infrastructure incentives, such as the ones offered by the Dubai Airport Free Zone Authority for re-exporting halal goods across the MENA region and beyond, where many countries are net importers and have large, increasing consuming populations. Last but surely not the least, everybody is in the pandemic right now, and despite the COVID-19 impact on the global economy, I would just like to say that the halal market remains resilient, just like it did during the 2008 financial crisis, and continues offering great business opportunities for companies worldwide. The fast and growing market offers business opportunities in many sectors, such as food, which is a clear driver. The halal cosmetics and halal pharmaceuticals are also registering a strong growth rate. With this, I would like to thank you all once again and pass the floor to Ms. Thiru Naidu for taking the program ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rahim. I now invite Mr. David Mugabe, Consulate General at the South African Embassy in the UAE, to share with us some opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Naidu, for this opportunity. To all distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, Salam alaikum, good afternoon. It is my honor and a privilege to address you this afternoon on this comparative opportunity between the South African Consulate General as well as DAFZA in the UAE. I want to use this opportunity to welcome all of you, organized by the Halal Trade and Marketing Center in the UAE, as I've said, in collaboration with the South African Consulate General, hosted by Westcrow in Cape Town in the Western Cape. I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to all our participants and presenters that have agreed to join us today in these opportunities to open opportunities for South African companies in the halal market. South Africa is a home to a diverse climates, cultures, rich resources, sophisticated infrastructure, and the most diverse economy in Africa, with a Muslim population of just over 1 million. South Africa has one of the continent's smallest Muslim population, but has become one of the largest producers of halal products worldwide due to its access to the rest of the continent and its highly advanced halal certification program. It is estimated that South Africa's halal industry is worth 45 million rand, which is almost $3.2 billion. South Africa produces high quality halal products for domestic and international consumption. South Africa plans to expand on its strong agricultural position, being virtually self-sufficient and exporting 30% more agricultural goods that it imports. With growing appetite of South Africa's products worldwide, South Africa has a vast opportunity that still needs to be exploited. We believe that there is an opportunity in the agro-processing and halal tourism, giving South Africa's reputation for quality, the high standard of halal products, Islamic banking sector services, proficiency in the English language, and pricing. To be specific, there are areas of further development in the halal industry. One is in the meat sector, and there has been a rise in demand for halal meat products from South Africa due to its quality. Companies can form joint ventures with existing or joint company or new companies in the country. There are other areas in South Africa with Muslim communities like KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, Northwest, Eastern Cape, Northern Cape, and Gauteng. In fact, in all the 9 provinces of South Africa. These are the areas that companies could explore in addition to the Western Cape, which is currently the hub of halal industry in South Africa. We are thankful to Expo and the government of the Western Cape province in particular for the halal industry, for flying the flag higher all over the world with regards to halal industry. South Africa has not overwhelmingly developed other halal segments such as cosmetics and pharmaceuticals, which could bolster the overall halal ecosystem. South African National Halal Authority, together with National Independent Halal Trust, are South Africa's halal certifiers that are ISIMA registered in the United Arab Emirates. The UAE has already established itself as a global market leader in the halal industry. And plans are underway to strengthen this position further. The country has almost 69 billion dirhams halal food industry, whose products are prepared for domestic consumptions or for export and re-export to various countries around the world. There are numerous opportunities in the UAE market that have a strategic fit for South African companies, such as meat, snacks, baby food, non-alcoholic celebratory drinks, sauces, as well as seasonings, dairy products, beverages such as carbonated drinks, packaged juice, and confectionery and chocolate. There are also a growing demand for halal cosmetics and personal care. This industry requires a halal certifications of ingredients, stringent traceability, and sensitivity to religious or cultural or issues in branding and packaging. It is estimated that the Islamic economy will be worth 3.2 trillion by 2024, according to the Halal Guidebook published by DAFZA, by DAFZA to say. In this scenario, the webinar should seek to identify and address some of the serious challenges hampering trade in the sector, such as unifying the standards and the interpretation of halal, building competent personnel to handle the whole value chain and ensuring that there is universal halal certification harmonization. Ladies and gentlemen, our presenters who are experts in the halal industry will enlighten us deeper about the opportunities in this growing sector, the importance and potential of this sector in deepening the good trade relations that exist between our 2 countries cannot be overemphasized. Thank you all for being virtually present today, and I wish you a fruitful deliberation. I wish you all a blessed day and advanced Ramadan Kareem to everyone. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you, Mr. Murabe. And Westro does indeed look forward to working very closely with the embassy to promote this very important industry to us. I see my CEO, Mr. Tim Harris, is on the line. Tim, would you like to come in and share a few opening remarks?
Yes, thank you, Tira. It's very great to join you today. Happen to be sitting outside in the last of the summer sun here in Cape Town, South Africa, and it's really great to join such an esteemed set of dignitaries launching this virtual event today. We've heard about the importance and the size of the global halal market, estimated to reach $9.7 trillion by 2025. And this means it's a really important global opportunity for us sitting at Westro and in the Western Cape state or provincial government that's already worked to position Cape Town and the Western Cape as a halal business hub on the African continent, including our first ever conference in the space held in 2017, and then the much larger Halal Expo Africa Week held in 2018. This is all part of our strategy to make sure that our region becomes one of the leading global suppliers to the halal goods and services market. Our ambition includes doubling our region's exports into the sector by 2025, which we predict will bring an estimated $58 million into our economy. And in so doing, grow our share of the global halal market from 1% to 2% by 2025. We've heard about the importance of certification and making sure that the market is formally and properly engaged through quality certification. And certainly we've got many companies certified here in the Western Cape that are operating globally, including some homegrown success stories like the successful businesses Good Hope Meats and Excellent Meats, which are both have long halal certified manufacturing success track records and distribution into the rest of Africa and beyond. We're also home to Burger King's meat patty factory, the second in the world to produce halal patties. They invested about 50 million South African rands in 2014 in a joint venture with Excellent Meats. And according to our colleagues in the provincial government, halal trade has already grown significantly out of the Western Cape by about 21% over the last 3 years. And we estimate that this incorporates now about 8% of our exports, understanding that some of our top export markets globally include the UAE, Malaysia, and Saudi Arabia, with a doubling of exports to Turkey in 2018 alone. So we see this webinar and the companies that are joining our distinguished hosts and in the diplomatic space and at the Dubai Airport Free Zone will be able to grow on this success story and realize many more opportunities using this virtual platform. So it's my great pleasure to formally welcome you on behalf of one of your hosts, Westgrow, and thank you for our co-hosts for joining us in this session. May it be very productive for all of the businesses involved. Thank you, Thierry.
Thank you, Tim. To talk to us about the rise of the global halal industry, I now invite Mr. Thomas Guerrero, Manager from the Halal Trade and Marketing Center. Mr. Thomas, over to you.
Thank you so much, Theo, for your kind introduction. I'm now sharing my screen with all of you. First of all, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you all today attending this wonderful webinar for sharing some business opportunities in the halal space for the South African companies. My name is Thomas Guerrero. I'm the manager of the Halal Trade and Marketing Center here in Dubai, a global business development center focused on the halal economy opportunities for the industry. Today, and before moderating the panel discussion, I will be sharing with all of you a brief presentation about the current state of the halal market globally. So now, let's start with the presentation. It's I'm conscious of the time, so it's a brief one. First of all, obviously we must start defining what halal means. So according to the Islamic law, halal is an Arabic term meaning lawful. Okay. So the halal economy, we can say, and as you probably know, we can say that the halal economy is currently composed of sectors whose core products and services are structurally affected by the Islamic law, such as food, that must be halal, finance, that must be Sharia compliant, or fashion, that must be modesty. In short, if we want to sell our products, if we want to market our goods in the Muslim majority countries, we must to comply with the halal standard. previously we must get the halal certification for producing some goods according to the Islamic law, because for exporting, because for marketing some specific consumption goods, the halal certification, as you probably know, it's now mandatory. So once we have a clear idea about what halal means, let's continue the presentation now highlighting the halal legal framework, because this market is, as I told you a few seconds ago, is now well regulated. First of all, we have different halal authorities. We have different halal regulatory bodies. Okay, so quickly, I would like to describing the three types of halal authorities that we can find when we look at the halal legal framework. First of all, from the Muslim majority countries, we have the halal standardization bodies. Okay, they are in charge of setting the halal rules. They are in charge of setting the standards for regulating this market in their home countries. Okay, then we also have in the Muslim majority countries the halal accreditation bodies, those in charge of auditing the halal certifiers in their home countries as well as abroad, in order to see if they have the capabilities, the religious ones, as well as the technical ones, for certifying companies according to the halal standards in their home countries. Okay, and finally, we have the certifiers. We have the halal certification bodies, those going to audit the companies in order to verify if they can produce goods according to the halal standards, if they can elaborate products according to the halal rules in the target countries. Okay, they must produce according to the existing halal standard in order to be allowed to export their halal certified products or their products to the Muslim majority countries. So as you saw, we have different halal authorities, but from the halal legal framework point of view, we also have different halal standards. And this is a small issue that we have when we look at this market. Why? Because we don't have a global halal standard. We have different rules, we have different halal standards for regulating the same market. So for the companies, it's now critical to understand how this market is regulated and who are the right certification bodies for obtaining the halal certification, because there are more than 400 halal certified 400 halal certification bodies across the world, but only a few have all the accreditations from the Muslim majority countries. So it's relevant, it's so important for companies to find a certifier with all the accreditations from the Muslim majority countries in order to get a certification that allows them to export with only one audit and one certification to the 57 OIC countries, to the all Muslim majority countries. Fortunately, in South Africa, we have the South African National Halal Authority, SANHA. It's one of the largest halal certification bodies worldwide, and they already have all the accreditations from the Muslim majority countries. So for the South African companies, it's so easy to export to the Muslim majority countries, to the 57 OIC countries, because you already have their one certifier with all the accreditations. So let's see later during the panel discussion, because we will be having the privilege to have the CEO of the South African National Halal Authority, how they can support the companies there to get the halal certification for them, allow them to market their products in the Muslim majority countries. Well, once we have a clear idea also about the halal legal framework, about the regulation of the halal market, now let's try to understand why this market is growing so fast. Let's try to see which are the drivers behind the success of the halal market, okay? Well, we have three drivers today explaining the fast growing of this market. First of all, we have a large, young, and fast growing population. The first driver is the demographic one. As you can see in this slide, currently we have 1.8 billion Muslim population living across the world. And according to the latest estimation, this segment of population will be reaching 2.2 billion in 2030. So we are talking about the 27% of the total population worldwide. For the reason, this market is so important for those companies looking for opening new market, for diversifying their exports, for finding new business opportunities, because we are talking about the 30% of the total population. So I would like to use also this slide to share with you three ideas. First of all, when we are talking about halal, we are talking about Muslims. We are not only talking about Arabs. The Arab countries, all of them are Muslim majority ones, but we also have here some minorities. So it's important to understand that we are talking about 1.8 billion people. Then secondly, it's also relevant to mention that when we talk about halal, we are talking, among other sectors, about food, not only meat, because many people also thinking that halal is only mandatory for meat or is something only related to the meat industry. But halal is going beyond meat. It's also going beyond the F&B sector, because now we have also standards for regulating halal cosmetics, for example, halal pharma products. And finally, and it's also important to mention, we also have some non-Muslim majority countries with significant Muslim populations, such as UK, US, Thailand, or Philippines. So there are also the opportunities for the halal certified companies in those countries with a significant Muslim population, even when they are not Muslim majority countries. So the opportunity is even wider. Then we have a second factor or driver boosting the growth of this business niche. Well, if you can see, we are talking about 57 Muslim majority countries, and many of them, they are emerging countries. They are also fast-growing economies. If you see this slide, we can see how the 57 OIC countries, the Muslim majority countries, have been growing above the world average growth. They have been growing so fast. So obviously, this factor is also contributing to the growth of the halal market. Why? Because it's empowering the Muslim population from the salary point of view. It's empowering the Muslim population in those countries, no? In the Muslim majority countries, in the 57 ones, we also have emerging Muslim middle classes. With they are improving, they are having a better or a bigger purchase power of purchase. So they can obviously they are starting also to demand and consume more goods, and obviously they are demanding halal goods. So these three factors that we already saw, the demographic one, the economic one, and this last one related to the emerging middle classes in the Muslim majority countries, are the one contributing to the growth of the halal market. And finally, we can also see an overview about the sectors under the umbrella of the Islamic economy, under the umbrella of the halal market. As you can see here, we have the data for the different halal sectors. And well, as I told you before, the halal market is growing so fast. In 2019, Muslims across the world spent around $2 trillion on halal products and services. If you see this slide, $1.1 trillion were designated that year by the Muslim population across the world to consume halal foods. So, okay, halal food is the largest halal sector in terms of volume and business opportunities, but not everything is food. Other sectors that we can see in this slide, such as halal cosmetics or halal pharma products, pharmaceuticals, are also registering strong growth rates and are expected to reach a value, for example, in the case of these two sectors, halal ones, close to $76 billion and $105 billion respectively in 2024. And we can see these numbers in the next slide, because we saw in the previous one the data for 2019 for the different halal sector, and here we have the estimation, the forecast for the same sectors in 2024. And as you can see, all the halal sector, not only the F&B one, the remaining one, also they will be also growing so fast. So I would like also to highlight that obviously F&B sector is so important, especially for the South African companies, as His Excellency already mentioned. But beyond the food and beverage opportunities, I'm sure that the South African companies can also find some good ones in other halal sectors, such as, for example, tourism, cosmetics, or pharma. And well, with this last slide, I will be finalizing my presentation. Now I will be giving back the floor to Mrs. Thiru in order to continue with the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thomas Guerrero. That was very enriching. To our guests, if you need to learn more on how to unlock the halal potential across the sectors, we can connect you with Thomas. It is my pleasure now to invite back Mr. Abdul Rahim. Mr. Rahim is going to talk to us about Dubai as a global trade hub for halal certified companies. Mr. Rahim, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Thiru, for inviting me again. Again, it's an honor for me. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everybody. Again, it's an honor for me to be here today with all of you representing the Buyer Food Freezing Authority and sharing some relevant insights about the future of the halal industry and the new market opportunities basically for the South African companies. So let me start by giving you a quick overview and about the flow of my presentation. We begin with a broader sort of an overview in terms of the wider global halal economy opportunity, then talk a little bit about Dubai, the UAE and its competitive strengths, move on to look at Dubai's vision of becoming the capital of the global Islamic economy, and then finally also look at some global diverse success cases out of Dubai that demonstrate success, especially in the halal industry, and how this represents an opportunity for the South African companies. Mr. Tim mentioned some of the companies from South Africa, and there are some many more South African companies that could be poised for success in the halal industry. And then finally, we look at how Dubai plays a key role in terms of intersection of key trade flows when it comes to halal. So a little bit about Dubai Airport Free Zone Authority. DAFZA was established in the year 1996 as a part of Dubai government strategy to become an investment-driven economy. We have, as I mentioned earlier, we are a special economic zone, and we have more than 1,800 companies from 20 different sectors with 16,000 people working in our community. Collectively, our special economic zone, its foreign trade exceeded 164 billion AED in 2019, which is approximately US dollars 45 billion. In essence, it's a one-stop shop for the international investors, providing them with licenses, with visas, with workspaces, and a host of incentives and benefits that they can potentially use to enter the market. Once again, going into and having a look at the global or the halal Islamic economy opportunity. To set the context right, again, my colleague Tomas has already introduced the definition of the Islamic or the halal economy, primarily representing the sectors who are fundamentally affected by the Islamic values. For example, in the case of food, it has to be, halal food and Sharia compliant finance and so on and so forth. In terms of modesty, it has to be, in terms of fashion, it has to be modest. The important thing I think here for the audience is to understand that this is the halal or the Islamic economy is not really meant for the Muslims, right? It is something which is more universally accepted today, as being ethical, wholesome, consumable for larger populations. When you look at the slide on my screen, you can see 6 core industry sectors, excluding Islamic finance, basically focusing on the product-related sectors. Collectively, these sectors represent $2.2 trillion in Muslim spending, which is approximately 12% of global spend in the same sectors. From a growth perspective, again, the story is quite strong. It has a CAGR of 6.2%, and this does not reflect the impact of the pandemic. However, in line with our forecast, we do see that the market coming back to the same levels that are being predicted. We must also note that the OIC growth as compared to the global segments is much higher, again illustrating additional opportunity for the companies trying to target this sector. So a little bit about Dubai. You can see some key metrics on your screen, and how Dubai plays a key role in terms of market statistics and dynamics. It's ranked at number 1 in the region in terms of doing business, and it has many other global key metrics which make it a key destination in terms of using this as a hub to expanding the lines of businesses. The other very relevant point when we talk about the halal or economy opportunity, specifically when it comes to Dubai, is that within a 2-hour flight radius, we have access to $578 billion worth of consumer spending. And this is actually a core reason as to why Dubai plays the role of an anchor when it comes to halal trade. And if you go beyond the 2-hour flight radius that you see on your screen, there is and look at the OIC countries in principle, it has an additional $296 billion opportunity worth of imports from the OIC to top that up sort of. So a little bit of a background, and let's go back a bit into the past to see how all this actually started. It actually started with the vision of His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, who's the Vice President and Prime Minister of the UAE and the ruler of Dubai, where he poised Dubai to become the capital of the global Islamic economy. And this actually led to the introduction of the Islamic economy as another pillar to the Dubai government strategy. And it led to the creation of our strategic partners, which is the Dubai Islamic Economy Development Center. It was the program management office for making this vision for His Highness into a reality. And you can see on the screen that DIDC's strategy focuses on three key pillars: Islamic finance, the halal industry, and the Islamic lifestyle. And these pillars are further supported by horizontal, infrastructure. I would say Islamic knowledge standards and the digital economy to make them actually mobilized. How does this all happen, right? So, we have a lot of vibrant sort of ecosystem players in Dubai. We are proud that DAFZA is one of them. Who contribute to the vision of His Highness. And there are other relevant key stakeholders who are actively engaged in supporting the Islamic economy along with the IDC. I won't go through all of them that you see on the screen. I'm sure that there are potentially many more, but I would like to talk briefly about some of them. One of them being the Global Islamic Economy Summit, which is poised to happen during the Expo this year. So we would like to invite all of you to visit that if you can. And also the State of the Global Islamic Economy report issued by Dinar Standard, which is a global reference report in terms of the halal Islamic economy. And it's something that's issued every year and has become a global reference. Salam Gateway, the news industry insights channel for halal. And in principle, also the halal regulatory system that we have in the United Arab Emirates is extremely strong and well established to support the industry. If I just move on very quickly to some of the halal success cases that we have out of Dubai, the one that you see on your screen is that of from New Zealand. Fonterra is a food industry player and in the dairy ingredients business. They're based out of here, and they're a global entity that have export tremendous amounts to the MENA region and the OIC countries. They're leveraging halal not only as from a pure compliance perspective, but also as a growth driver for their businesses. Then we have the case in the case of pharmaceuticals, we have Abbott Labs, and you can see that they have also capitalized on the halal ecosystem. You can see some stats on the screen, which you can mull over. This information will be later shared with the audience. Then we also have the case for Hershey's, which is actually based out of the Dubai Airport Free Zone Authority, amongst the many others that you have been seeing. And Hershey's is obviously a very well-known brand and have halal compliance all over the world. And again, something that has been able to drive growth and success for them. Again, as our colleague, Mr. Thomas pointed out, and I'm sure the halal experts on the panel will also enlighten you, that there are a lot of ways and methodologies by which you can access the right market in terms of the product categories and commodities that you have. And that's why it's important to sort of attend these sessions to develop the learning that is needed for you to enter this market in terms of not only opportunity, but also in terms of compliance. Having said that, it is very much clear, that we have these success cases and we would like to see more out of South Africa coming to Dubai. You can see on your screen that you have in addition to the ones that mentioned by Mr. Tim, you have a lot of other companies also who are very strong in the key sectors for the Islamic economy, whether it be food, pharma, cosmetics, or fashion. And there is a massive case for internationalizations, and I'm sure that these brands could benefit tremendously by being, by having international operations from our countries. So, for example, you have in the food category, we have the Rose Food Group, an internationally recognized producer of convenience meal solutions for customers throughout South Africa. It ranks among the top 10 listed food companies on Joburg and Stock Exchange, and that says it all. Aspen Pharmacare within pharmaceuticals with I think 160-year heritage. So these are massive stats and massive numbers. Lulu and Merla in cosmetics, producing the naturally ethical produced skin and body care collection. Again, it's a huge market, the Middle East, right? So when you're in Dubai, not only do you get access to Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, but also the neighboring, very close by economies such as Saudi Arabia, Oman, and so on and so forth. And even in terms of seaport and airport connectivity, there is massive opportunities. Again, lastly, not only in the fashion, you have Maxosa, which is the South African knitwear brand founded in 2012. Again, a clear case in terms of the the power of the brands that you have in South Africa. It's very, very clear that this is something that's poised to happen sooner or later. Very quickly going back to Dubai and emphasizing a little bit more. If you recall, I did talk about briefly about the opportunity, the $296 billion opportunity. But in addition to that, we should not discount, the growing Muslim population, which is extremely large and growing, predicted to grow very much. And also the power of the global Muslim spending is increasing dramatically. I can't go into all the product categories or the verticals that we have discussed, but I would briefly like to highlight just the opportunity for halal food. This represents the greatest opportunity, the chunk of opportunity. $212 billion of food was imported into the OIC countries, which clearly signifies the opportunity. And we can also see the exporters as well as the importers on your screens right now, where the UAE imports approximately $16.6 billion in terms of food, and this is massive, right? So, however, again, and obviously the goods that are coming into the United Arab Emirates are, we don't have that big of a population. So a lot of these goods are actually being re-exported to the OIC countries and to the other markets where Muslim consumption is required and needed. So at the end of it, I would like to say that we would like to see more, companies from South Africa using Dubai as a hub again to supply to the non-OIC and the Asian markets. And you can see, on the left-hand side bottom, you can see Bangladesh, Pakistan, Turkey. These are already clear opportunities where already re-export is happening, and then South African companies could also take advantage of this. At last, but certainly not the least, I would just like to thank you all again. I hope you have enjoyed the brief presentation. In terms of time, we are quite limited. And I would like to pass the floor back to Ms. Thiru and to the moderators, and wish you a very enriching and insightful panel discussion. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Rahim. Very insightful, and again, such great opportunity across sectors. Thanks for reiterating that. We now come to the second part of our program, which is an exciting panel discussion. We have lined up an esteemed panel of speakers, including some of our very own success stories joining us in the panel. In the panel, I welcome Mr. John Ace, Commercial Manager from the Rhodes Food Group here in South Africa, Mr. Paul Potgieter, Chairman of the South African Business Council in Dubai, Mr. Ibrahim Patel, CEO of Magellan Management, and Mr. Mulana Navlahi, who's the Director of SANA, which is our South African National Halal Authority. Moderating the panel discussion will be Mr. Thomas Guerrero. Thomas, over to you.
Thank you so much, Thiru, for your introductions. I also appreciate the way Mr. Abdurrahim inspiring presentation. The data will help us a lot for introduction and moderating the next panel discussion about unlocking halal opportunities for South African companies. Today, as you already mentioned, we have a wonderful panel discussion with the speakers, with the halal experts from South Africa and the UAE. I'm sure that we will be having an interesting and productive conversation. Well, let's start with the panel discussion. First of all, I would like to start introducing Mr. John Ace, is the Commercial Manager of Rhodes Food Group in South Africa. John, I would like to start saying that Rhodes Food Group is becoming a reference in the halal food space. So what has the halal certification mean for your company? I would like to start asking you what means halal means for your company, and also what have been the biggest or largest challenges working with the halal market.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel. I think for Rhodes Food Group, being an international supplier of food and beverage products, halal certification, it just gave us access to markets and consumers that we didn't have access to before. And it also helps us to differentiate us from our competitors. But it hasn't been an easy road. I think that the most difficult part is a certification part, and to try and understand, as your presentation showed earlier, there's so many different bodies and certification authorities to try and understand what does get recognized in certain countries and what does not. Also the factory audits that we needed to go through. We've walked away from some deals because we find that the cost implications and the factory audits and the processes that need to be followed, we didn't have full clarity on that. But that's been in the past. We've worked through that, and now most of our products are all certified and recognized at all the various bodies. So yes, it's been a road, but it's been a good road.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your experience working with the halal certification and the Muslim majority countries. I would like also take the opportunity to ask you about the future of the halal food sector. What future awaits halal food, especially for a company like Rhodes Food Group?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think, to sell anything, around the world and local markets, international markets, you need to understand what your consumers and customers' requirements are, who they are, where they're from, where do they live, and what do they want. Now, in the context of this, for us as an international supplier of food and beverage, we need to take account of the growth of the global Muslim community. As you've mentioned in your presentation, the Muslim community and the Islamic faith will grow in the future. You've looked at the next 5 to 10 years, and we've just looked at the next 30 years. And come 2060, it's estimated that about a third of the world population will follow the Islamic faith. And that's important to us, because if you want to sell to everyone in the world, you need to understand who your consumers will be. The second point that's very important for us, especially in the Muslim majority countries, is the growth of the middle class. Now, exporting products out of South Africa, it's normally seen as a premium product. And when the middle class is growing, they tend to move towards more premium products. So South Africa has got high quality foods, and to play in these markets, you need to be halal certified. And then I think, something that not a lot of people focus on is the non-Muslim majority countries. And because of increased globalization, multiculturalism, and transnational cosmopolitanism, it forces different cultures to co-live together around cities in the world. So your in-channels that serves food products or beverage products, they need to serve halal products. And therefore, the suppliers need to be halal. So we focus on that as well. And that's why it's important for us that our products, has got halal certification that does get recognized.
Great. Yeah, you are mentioning or highlighting two relevant ideas. First of all, regarding South Africa, companies, F&B ones, you are right. There you have the possibility of producing high quality products, but also with very competitive prices. So that's really good point. It's an advantage for the companies there, for the F&B ones. And also another interesting point that you already mentioned is related to the middle classes, as we saw in my presentation, but also it's, I think, related to this point, is also important to highlight that many of the Muslim majority in countries are importers, are net importers of food. They are importing, for example, here in the GCC countries or in the MENA region ones, we have countries importing around the 70, 75, even the 80% of the food that they are consuming. We are importing, we have this dependency on food. We are importing around some countries in this part of the world, we are importing around the 75 or the 80% of the food that we are consuming. So that's another interesting point to thinking about the South African F&B companies, because as you already mentioned, you have there strong players like Rhodes Food Group with the halal certification, and that's could be a very good way of covering this gap. Why not think about South African F&B companies tapping this dependency, through the halal certification. So thank you so much, Jon, for sharing your comment, your ideas, your thoughts. Much appreciated. Now let's continue with the chairman of the South African Business Council here in Dubai, with Mr. Paul. Well, South Africa and the United Arab Emirates are, as Mr. Abdurrahim already mentioned, complementary markets. So I would like to start asking you about what actions is currently the Business Council taking to strengthen the trade between South Africa and the UAE?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. It's a pleasure being with you. And I mean, first and foremost, also thank you to our host, Dubai the DAFZA as well, helping us to connect. I think that's critically important. To answer your question, I think there's multiple factors. You know, we've listened today a lot about the why, and most of the why stems from the key driving force around demand and supply. But the South African Business Council is significantly focused on the how. You know, to create a market and to get access to a market is one thing, but you know, we really focused on creating those opportunities and really shaping that value chain between the UAE and South Africa. So, you know, to create that interest and to broker, you know, that component, there's a lot of expertise needed to really look at deconstructing that value chain and then ultimately getting the partnerships and the alliances in place that can help South African companies not only to access a market here in the UAE, but sustainably and profitably over time, really serve that market. So, you know, I think when we think about business in that sense, you know, traditionally we want to connect these stakeholders together in terms of demand and supply. But more importantly, the South African Business Council focuses on facilitating, you know, that process and working with DAFZA and all the other stakeholders to truly build that trust in the value chain. And I think the other big part that's really critical today is, you know, really helping businesses in South Africa to accelerate. You know, we've listened today how great South Africa is when it comes to the quality of product, the governance and the oversight of the product. But ultimately, it's about how we can create that value within the region. So, you know, this is where the council has people that are running businesses in the UAE. You know, it is small mid-market startups that are aiming to scale quickly. And that's the type of expertise that is available. And I think what's needed to really help, you know, orchestrating that value chain going forward.
Fully agree, and it's wonderful to hear that and know that you are doing a great job trying to enabling South African companies to do business or to grow their business in the UAE, in Dubai. But now regarding to the halal market, I would like also to ask you, due to your vast experience here in the UAE, living and working in Dubai, and now leading the South African Business Council, have you seen an increase in interest in the halal market? Have you saw an increase of interest, no, in the South African companies from the South African companies trying to now maybe try to do business with halal?
Well, the short answer is yes, right? I think if you look at the economic factors, the demand indicators, we obviously see significant interest, but also real growth. So from a trade perspective, the numbers essentially flow and the projections are real. I think maybe the other spectrum or other lens that we can maybe comment on is, you know, once again, if you look at the constituents that we represent, these businesses essentially serve the market. So they are really at the cold phase. They're at the point of activity. And then those businesses are typically in retail. You know, so Spinneys, for instance, which for those of you who are in the UAE, Spinneys are a big retail chain, very similar to Woolworths that we have in South Africa. But, you know, you look at their product set, their mix of products, that's really where you see the activity increase. And, you know, once again, on the ground, the way that these South African businesses are operating in UAE is fundamentally focused on what is their strategy to get halal products to the right market and ultimately close that value chain with the retail side of, or the demand side in retail as well. So, you know, I think this is where the South African Business Council, once again, you know, that's where we see the activity is, you know, at the retail side, we can actually see the consumer demand increasing, which is once again phenomenal to see.
Great. That's also great to know. Thank you so much, Paul, for your insightful thoughts. Now, I would like also to give the floor to Mr. Ibrahim Patil, the CEO of Magillan Management in South Africa, and also one of the pioneers in the halal space. I met him a few years ago, a long time ago, and still he's working in order to facilitate halal trade worldwide and leading some initiatives, some of them across the world for promoting halal. Well, Ibrahim, let me see. Well, South Africa is a world power, producing F&B products. So let's start with this point, and I would like, regarding the same, asking you, what are the main opportunities from your point of view for the South African F&B companies in the halal market?
Thank you, Thomas, and it's so nice to connect with you once again. Excellency Consul General, thank you very much for pushing this initiative as well to promote South African products into the halal market, especially in the Middle East. Let me start by saying that I could not more forcefully support what Mr. Abdul Rahim had said earlier on, and that is being that halal product is not specifically for Muslims themselves. It is a huge market that once we understand that there's a demand for products that are created ethically, that have transparency, are used sustainably, that there's a huge market that then opens up. And halal producing companies are not just producing goods particular to a religious standard, but also to a very high health standard as well. So one could then argue that the whole debacle of eating donkey meat in Europe would have been saved by people knowing what the ingredient was from a specific farm to fork perspective. And that is the huge market that I say that halal products need to understand and gain entry into, and not just the 1.4 billion Muslims across the world, but rather the 8 billion consumers that the entire world represents. And once we start moving the product into that space, then we see a far bigger market that emerges. For me, in terms of food and beverages, it is not just the food product themselves, but the ingredients that would go into those products. So South African ingredient manufacturers can see a huge demand for products that are now, as the UAE starts moving into the manufacturing space, as the UAE starts building capacity in terms of food processing, they would still require demand for the ingredients. So once we start shifting across the value chain, once we start shifting the product across the entire perspective, then we see a different perspective of the market. So Thomas, I would say that beyond food and beverage lies things such as health supplements, energy drinks. There's a huge market in the Middle East for energy drinks, and I know youngsters across the entire GCC are a huge demand for these energy drinks. And South Africa is a producer of these energy drinks. Health supplements in terms of people wanting to live a more natural and healthier lifestyle, especially during this time of a global pandemic when people have been trying to boost their immunities. There's been a global demand for health supplements, and South African companies are huge producers of this. So I think that beyond the food and beverage market, there's a huge opportunity. In terms of building the relationships and strengthening the relationship between the UAE and South Africa, there is an unexplored and untapped market in terms of the Islamic finance. South Africa is looking to issue a number of sukuks. We know a few of the SOEs are looking to raise capital funding on the international markets, and Dubai investors will be very interested in some of these sukuks. So we can then therefore look at other opportunities in building and strengthening that relationship.
Thank you. I fully agree with your point of view. Let me also share with the audience something regarding the point that you already mentioned about healthy products, the huge demand behind this type of ethical products. For example, in Europe, from Spain, we are assisting to a new phenomenon. We are starting to see how non-Muslim consumers, for example, from the healthy segment, they are starting to demand and consume halal products because they think they are good for their health, from the health point of view. So it's clear that the market is even bigger. It's beyond this 1.8 billion Muslim population. So yeah, I think halal could drive these opportunities, as well as kosher is also trying to do the same. And we can also see, for example, in the US, non-Jewish consumers also demanding or consuming kosher products because they are looking for quality, they are looking for healthy products, they are looking for ethical products sometimes, no? So going beyond this, I would like also to take the opportunity to ask you about the future of the halal certified companies, or the future of the halal market in a post-COVID scenario.
I think South African companies are well poised to enter in, and we're talking specifically for South African companies, are well poised to enter into the halal market. Number one is that in South Africa, we have a very high standard of halal certification and halal accreditation. So organizations such as Sanha, NIHT, MJC enjoy global recognition. And so South African halal certified products can enter into markets very easily. The second part is that we have a very high degree of acceptability of South African brands. So we have some of those brands, the Rhodes Group are on our panel today, but South African brands are seen as well manufactured and well-produced brands, have a reputation of high standard. They manufacture to high hygiene standards as well. So we already have this reputation that has been built into South African products generally, the acceptability into the halal standard. So I think that we already have this advantage, and we can harness this advantage for growing those businesses. The transparency of products, the logistical requirements that are there. South Africa have been well connected to the UAE between Durban, Johannesburg, and Cape Town, the number of flights that are coming in and out, the regional connectivity that then takes place. South African manufacturers have a great potential to enter this market. And I would impress on whoever is looking to enter the market, has already been into the market, can see the potential of it.
Yeah, that's great also to hear, to know. Thank you so much, Ibrahim, for your thoughts, for sharing your deep experience in this market with all of us, and inviting the South African companies to try to capitalize on the opportunities in this fast-growing business niche. Well, finally, and before finalizing this wonderful panel discussion, today we also have the privilege to count on Mr. Mulana Nabagli. He's the director of the South Africa National Halal Authority. Mr. Mulana, as I already said, SANHA, the South African National Halal Authority, is one of the largest certification bodies worldwide, and the largest one in South Africa. So I would like to start the conversation with you, asking about how did you achieve that, and how many of your existing halal certified companies are already exporting to the United Arab Emirates or to the GCC countries.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Thomas, and also to the Westbrook Group and the Dubai Free Zone Group, DAFZA, as well as our Honorable Ambassador in the UAE. We are humbled really by your deduction that we're the largest certifier in South Africa, or amongst the largest in the world. we haven't really did that survey, and I'm sure you did, to make that statement. We strive, the motto of the organization is to strive for excellence and professionalism. And some 25 years ago, it's going to be quarter of a century this year that Sanha was established. The idea to establish Sanha as a cohesive single halal certification body gave birth or was conceived in the early 90s when South Africa entered its new dispensation. Sanctions were lifted. Participants would know the challenges that the industry faced with sanctions being imposed on the country during the apartheid days. And since apartheid was abolished, there were various challenges that were faced by the halal industry, the deregulation of the meat industry, the lifting of sanctions, etc., etc. And it was then, discussed and decided upon by the leadership that we should look at a cohesive, uniform halal certification body in the country and bring everybody on a common platform. And some 20-odd organizations formed part of the founding membership of the South African National Halal Authority. And yes, I think that inclusivity, that focus and dedication to the service, there's no other educational service or other services that are rendered. It's purely a halal regulatory body that has embraced the motto of think globally and act locally. South Africa is one of those countries where a halal certification was initiated well back in the 1960s. So it is a very mature regulatory service that has been rendered in comparison to many of the other countries of the world. And also the focus has been the local community, the local consumers. The South African Muslim consumer is 100 times, with respect and humility I say this, is 100 times more aware and educated with regards halal. You would find our national helpline that we are operating for almost 2 decades now. You will find a little child, a mother, industry, father, all sectors of the community and the industry calling in to the helpline to ask about the halal status of products, from a jelly sweet to a hormone therapy pharmaceutical product that the doctor might have prescribed for the housewife. So this is the background of halal in the country, and I think the global footprint has also been as a result of our contribution to the global halal space, being founding members of the World Halal Council, actively interacting with role players like Jakim, being amongst the first body in the entire African continent to get accreditation from the Gulf Accreditation Center, and we've also now got accreditation from the Emirates Authority, from ESMA and EAC. And this is all about improving and developing the service so that you are able to give that 100% assurance, not only to your local community, but to the global community out there.
That's great. Congratulations on your achievement. It's clear that Shanghai is doing a great job. You are enabling South African companies, supporting them to get the other certification and then export to the Muslim majority countries. Regarding my question about the certified companies already exporting to the UAE or GCC countries, I would like to know if you have the data. Obviously, we would like to know how many of them they are exporting to this part of the world, and which are, from your point of view, the key halal certified products in terms of exports, in terms of South African exports.
Look, there are many countries exporting from South Africa to other countries of the world, as well as the Middle East and the UAE. However, we do not have a count of all such companies. There are companies we know of in the confectionery industry, the sweet and snack manufacturing industry, the biscuit industry, and the ones that are required to have halal certification at present, as per the UAE ESMA and Dubai government UAE regulations, has been the meat industry. So at the moment, any product that leaves the country which has meat ingredients must have halal certification. From our record, there's about 10 odd companies that we regularly issue certification for the export of meat products. And I would say just meat products alone, in the past year, we've certified approximately 35,000 tons of meat products that were exported under our certification to the Middle East. Obviously, there are other halal certification bodies also accredited, like the NIHT, for export to the Middle East, and they would have a significant quantity of product also that has gone out under halal certification.
Thank you so much, Maulana, for this data, for sharing the data with us. We are close to the end of the event, so I will be giving back the floor to Mrs. Thiru in order to continue with the program and finalize on time.
Thank you so much, Thomas, for moderating, and thank you to our esteemed panel of guests, speakers. I'm sure all of our guests found the information very insightful. We have reached indeed, at the end of our program. I would now like to welcome Mr. Francois Henschel from the Consulate from the Embassy of South Africa in the UAE to share with us closing remarks. Mr. Francois, over to you.
Thank you, Thiru, and thank you very much to all the participants for this excellent event. And a special word of thanks to yourselves at Westgrow, the Dubai Free Zone Authority, as well as our panel members, and also Tom specifically for this excellent event and the information that was shared. I think it's also important for us to note from the embassy side that South Africa is a key participant and an exporter to the UAE. Just as an example, the Minister of Food and Water Security, Her Excellency Miriam Al-Meri here in the UAE, recently wrote to the embassy. We introduced a food security strategy of the UAE. And in the letter, she specifically mentioned the importance of South Africa as a supplier of food and food products and processed foods and meats to the UAE to support the strategy. An example of that is, tangible example, the South African exports to the UAE of these products during the pandemic increased by between 26 and 36% on the various items, which then re-emphasizes that South Africa has an opportunity. South African exporters and producers have an opportunity. But then just to link to what other panel members said as well, the National Food Security Strategy of the UAE is not only about sourcing food and products from other countries, it's also about producing it here and re-exporting to the region. So from us and the embassy and the Consulate General in Dubai, we see three distinct possibilities, not only exporting, but joint producing, as well as re-exporting. That for us is a critical aspect. And from the figures and facts I mentioned, and the minister actually raised this, it is clear that they see South Africa as a critical participant in their strategy going forward. Then finally, I just would like to again flag that Expo 2020 will be taking place from end of September, October this year to next year. There will be a South African National Pavilion that is being organized by the DTIC. There are themes per month, per week. And I would like to extend a sincere invitation to South African producers, South African companies, link up with the DTIC to see if there could be synergies that they could explore while the South African government will be having a national pavilion here in the UAE. Again, to everyone, thank you so much. And to the participants, please feel free to contact the embassy and the Consulate General in Dubai. We're here to assist you. And we do believe that there are excellent opportunities going forward. And may I wish everyone Ramadan Kareem. Thank you.
Thank you, Henschel. And thank you again to all of our panelists for the insights and learnings today. We truly appreciate your time today, Mr. David Mochape, Mr. Thomas Guerrero, Mr. Abdul Rahim, Mr. John Ace, Mr. Paul Potgieter, Mr. Ibrahim Patel, Mr. Mulana Naflaki, thank you for your time today. And of course, thank you to all of our participants who have joined. Please keep an eye out for our next webinar on unlocking red tape in the Middle East. And again, to our Muslim community, we wish you all well during the upcoming fast and a blessed Eid Mubarak. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Keep safe. Thank you.